Hey, this is Ralph, and in this video I just want to talk about some basic concepts of web design. And we've already looked at some making web pages. You've got your block elements, you got your inline elements, you got your hyperlinks, put in a basic image. You can start making web pages left and right. But you do want to keep an eye on what makes one page better than another. And one of the best ways to do that is really just to look at a lot of websites, and you'll start to see things that you like and you don't like, and you'll start to see some common kind of layout and features and stuff like that. Let me jump over to the web real quick. There we go. I do have web pages that suck open up, but that's not where I want to go to first. Let's see. Let me just head over to, just think of the popular websites you go to. What is Apple looking like these days here? There we go. Nice clean design, navigation menu across the top. Obviously big advertisement promoting a product on there. Then they've got secondary content, secondary navigation down here near the bottom, some footer information with some of those secondary kinds of things like site maps, RSS feeds, contact, job opportunities. That's common in business sites to put those at the bottom, but definitely at the top of the page. Now, Apple is not really big into putting their big logo right on their web page. A lot of sites will do that in the top left corner. They do have a small button though for that. So that's something to keep in mind. But nice clean design, so it's not a bad way to go. Let's check out another one real quick. How about Yahoo? Yahoo hasn't been doing well for a few years, but they do have some very common layout features. Logo in the top left corner, very common to put the logo in the top left corner. Now Yahoo is breaking a pretty standard rule. Generally your logo is also a hyperlink to your home page, so I'm curious if I was over here at images. Nope, still not an option. Autos. Yep, now Yahoo will take you to the home page for Yahoo Autos. That's kind of weird. Key information right at the top, navigation down the left. What about Amazon? There we go. Branding top left corner, which is a link to the home page. Navigation in this case down the left, but of course they want to promote their search, so they've got search right across the top. And basically, you got to keep in mind, people have different browser sizes, so you want to, make sure you get your branding in that top left corner and your navigation somewhere along the top or along the left near the top, so that people can get that right away. And so that's something to keep in mind. Now, I'm going to jump back over here to my editor. I just want to jot down a couple ideas. So let's see. So let's go ahead and keep an eye on location of key elements. So definitely you want that logo, branding in the top left corner. Now of course you can break that rule. It could be in the top center, maybe even in the top right, but the top left corner is generally the most common place for that logo. And logo is a link to the home page. Okay, so take care of that one. Put a period on there. And navigation near top left also. Okay, so those are some really common things for location of key elements. Navigation, logo, branding, main content, like that. If you can, you would like to try to avoid having people scroll down to really get to the stuff you want them to see. Other things you'll often hear, especially in e-commerce sites, is you want a call to action. You want people to be able to do something right away. So at Amazon, probably the call to action is to search or specifically to click on a particular featured product. In this case, the Kindle. Over on Apple sites, it was the iPad 2. So they want you to do something. They want you to go get the information on this and hopefully convert that to a sale. Now, other things you have to keep in mind is browser size, and that's why a lot of these sites put this stuff in the top left corner. Let's see, I'm currently at a resolution here of about 1280 wide, and everything's... Nope, I take that back. I am at a resolution right now of 1024 on this screen. I have another monitor that's 1440, but this monitor is 1024 wide, and it is a portrait monitor, so it's like 1280 tall though. But 1024 is still a relatively common resolution. It's probably the most common, it's probably the smallest of the common resolutions. But you want to find out, well, what kind of resolution are people using? Because if you are using a really big, nice widescreen monitor at home, you got to make sure that you understand that not everybody has that same widescreen monitor. Let me show you something real quick that you can kind of check this out with. I'm going to head over to Google Analytics, which is a pretty cool service. Let me access Analytics for a moment. View a report. Check out visitors. And screen resolutions. Okay, so these are the screen resolutions to visitors to my site. And we can start to see where the big areas are. Notice that this little green wedge over here, okay, about 16% of my visitors using 1024 768. 18%, it's very dispersed here, okay? So 18% using 1280, 1024, there's 1280 by 1024, so we got some widescreen monitors and things like that. 10% using a 1366 by 768, so those are probably some notebook computers with really wide screens. 1680 by 1050. Notice that the smallest one listed on here is 1024 wide, and that's good information to know. So although people do have wider resolutions that are visiting my site, nobody really seems to have anything smaller than 1024 that's being registered, which means when I design a site, or when you design a site, maybe 1024 should be what you design for. And that's exactly what we're seeing places like Amazon.com do, okay? They're designing for that 1024 resolution. So when somebody goes to Amazon's site at a 1024 res, the site fills it up perfectly. You know, if they go there with a smaller resolution, they're going to get that horizontal scroll bar, and you always want to try to avoid that horizontal scroll bar. So you got to design for browser width, okay? So let me jump back over to my editor here. Browser resolution. 1024, and I'm going to put down 768 basically here. Now when you're designing for a 1024 by 768 resolution, that doesn't mean you set the width of your container or your site to 1024. You'll usually set it to something a little bit smaller. And what does that really mean? Check this out. I'm going to go to the body of my page, and I'm going to create a div. ID equals container. Okay, so now I have a container, and I'll do a closing div down here at the bottom. A little comment just so we know what's going on. End of container. Okay, so now I have a container. And I'm going to use my container to kind of size my website. I'm going to go up to my style, and the first thing I'm going to do, jump back up here for a quick second. There we go. That's what I wanted. So I'm going to do a wildcard selector to make sure I wasn't typing there by accident down at the bottom. I think I'm okay. Okay, I'm going to do a wildcard selector, margin 0 pix, padding 0 pixels. Talk about this a little bit more in styles. This is called a reset rule. Okay, sets all elements to margin and padding 0 pixels. And then I'm going to go to my container. This is an ID selector, and I'm going to set the width of my container to 1024 pixels, and I'm going to put a background color on it. Background color yellow. So now we can really kind of see this. So I'm going to save this, jump back over to my browser. Actually, I'll just do a run, launch in Firefox, and there we go. So now we can see my container, and notice that I'm getting a little bit of horizontal scroll action here. Part of the width of your page is taken up by scroll bars and borders and things like that. So designing for a 1024 wasn't appropriate, even though I've got a 1024 resolution. So what I want to do in those kinds of situations is design for something a little bit less. How about if I did 990 pixels? Save that, browser refresh. Now I have no horizontal scroll. Now I do have a little bit of a gap there, but that's okay. So what a lot of sites will do is say, well, what if I go even smaller, like 900 pixels? Okay, now I've got a gap on one side, but a common tactic is to do something like margin 10 pix auto. And basically what they're doing now is they're putting In this case, I'm putting 10 pixels of margin on the top and the bottom and automatic margins on the left and the right. So there's a little space across the top and there's equal margins on the left and the right. Hence, I've centered my container and my page. But it looks well, it looks good at 1024 resolution. It doesn't, now if someone's there at a bigger resolution like 1600 pixels wide or something like that, then there's going to be more space on the left and the right. But that's a pretty common tactic. All right, so that's a little bit just with some web design, is location of key elements and thinking about your browser resolution. And in the next video, I want to talk about a couple more elements.